Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with Golden Opportunities Coaching, and welcome back for more content. If you're new, please like, subscribe, comment below. If there's an audio we can do for you, please feel free to ask. No harm in that. Usually can get those done within a couple of days. In any event, we've got more content coming for July. If there's something that would be helpful to you, let us know. Today, we're going to talk about a concept that I deal with a lot, and that is loneliness. Most of my clients, a lot of them anyway, have experienced extended loneliness for an extended period of time, and that is unfortunate, obviously. But what causes loneliness, especially in this coronavirus where we're all being socially isolated? Some would say justifiably, others have their questions, but regardless, it's happening to most of the world right now. And the loneliness that comes with it, what causes loneliness, and how to combat it, and those type of things are what we're going to talk about today. There's about, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 or 9 things I want to cover in this audio. There's an interesting study that said over 75% of people would classify themselves as lonely. There were about 4,000 people surveyed in that study. I wish I had the exact link to it, but anyway, I heard about that on a podcast I was listening to not too long ago, and I thought 3 out of 4 people consider themselves lonely. That's really scary. Usually loneliness starts because people find it hard to connect, and connection is one of those things where I don't think we spend enough time, especially with younger people and children, in helping them to realize the importance of social connections, especially in a digital and social media instant gratification age. I'm reminded of a story of a person that I knew who wanted to date this girl for an extended period of time, finally gets the girl over for a date, and they spend time with each other texting in the same room, and I thought that's ridiculous. But it was a major thing. I think that we've lost the art of non-digital communication, and so it makes connecting with another person harder because people aren't as deliberate. Before the age of the answering machine, for example, when you had to make a phone call and someone wasn't home, you had to call back. Now you can just leave a text and anxiously wait for someone to respond to you, and I think that has negatively affected social interaction. So another thing is people are scared to get too close. The expectations that people have often are under responded or under received, under reciprocated, and also under communicated. So a lot of people go into relationships kind of expecting their partner, their friend, their potential lover or boyfriend, girlfriend to know their needs without expressing them. And this is one of the biggest deal breakers and deal killers. Look, gender roles and all that aside, and we are evolving, I think, away from a lot of that, but it still does exist in some places. But if you're assuming that somebody knows what you need without telling them and being clear and concise, you're making it harder for them to get close to you because they don't know how to connect with you. And so the fear of closeness is a 50-50 thing. Yes, there's the chance you should get hurt, and I tell people all the time that if you're afraid to get hurt, you're not afraid to connect. You are afraid to connect. And if you're afraid to connect, you've got to deal with your fear of connection before you start a new relationship, friendship, what have you, not afterwards. Because if you deal with it afterwards, when a person doesn't meet your needs or expectations, you're going to react and quite often overreact in a way that's not useful or helpful. And so it can cause challenges. But the fear of rejection is once it's conquered, which is any person can reject me, but I can recover. That's the way to conquer the fear of rejection. That mindset is the way to conquer it. And so the reality of that is something worth looking at. The more rapid changes a person has, the more lonely they feel. So if you've moved across country for a job, or if you've been through a breakup recently, or if you've been through the end of a close friendship, and that's happening very quickly, the more isolated a person feels because a change will negatively impact a person's level of emotional security. And every time your emotional security takes a ding, so too does your feeling of connectedness with others, even if that's not your intention. And when your connectedness with others takes a ding, guess what? Loneliness rears its ugly head, and ultimately there's a challenge that comes with that. So another one is, and this is huge, codependency. When you believe that another person's job is to make you happy, when you believe another person's job is to complete you rather than compliment you, you will end up lonely in the end. Reason being, a person cannot be your emotional support system 100% of the time. Yes, in a healthy relationship, we lift each other up. You do it for me, I do it for you, and it's like a tennis match. And I've used this analogy, and my clients who are listening right now probably are going to get annoyed because they're hearing one of my key analogies. But the idea is relationships are a volley, and love or connection is the ball. And so we go back and we go forth, and we go back and we go forth, and we go back and we go forth. And then somebody wins or somebody gets the point. The point is when the relationship escalates to the next emotional level, be that commitment, monogamy in romantic relationships, or deeper levels of trust in a friendship or family dynamic. But then you have to go back, and I give and you give, and I give and you give. Once the ball of connection is out of play, once the ball of volley is out of play, the relationship is over. And that's what a lot of people struggle with, especially codependents, is they think, well, if I continue doing for you, you're never going to leave. And so the overgiver mentality is activated by this false notion that if I continue to give and continue to give, I won't be left. And that ultimately is a root cause of a lot of people's challenges in relationships in general, and thereby a root cause in a lot of people's loneliness. Knowing oneself is another big part of this. So the person you were when you were, let's say, 14, and the person you are at 35, and the person you are at 57, and the person you are at 87 are all going to be different forms of you. You are constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly, hopefully, growing, and evolving into the person you are yet to become. But the problem is, if you're not knowledgeable about how you've changed, how you've evolved, how you've grown, and you don't know yourself, or you've been in a codependent or even worse, an abusive relationship, and you haven't had a chance to get to know who you are now after that relationship that's gone on for several months, several years, etc., you will find it difficult to connect with others because the new you and the old you are different people. And so you may have some of the same interests, or you may not. You may have some of the same core values, again, or you may not. You may be in the midst of changing what you value in life. In other words, you may value having kids at 25, have one, realize it's not for you, get through parenthood, and by 40, you wouldn't date someone with kids, or by 45, whatever it is. But the idea is your value score has changed, but if you haven't updated it to know yourself in that way, you will create challenges. And so the next is being misunderstood. Clear communication is also concise. Concise communication is also clear. So if you know what you need from a person, the worst they can say is no. Asking for it in a clear, concise manner is necessary for relationships to continue developing in a healthy way. Challenge is most people are afraid of rejection to the point where they don't communicate clearly, and then they create this automatic rejection because they're misunderstood. So it's a negative feedback loop. If you want to be understood, you have to take the risk, calculated, educated risk of declaring your needs in a clear, concise manner, knowing that a person could reject you, but usually the majority of people aren't going to reject you if you're asking for something reasonable. And if you're asking for something unreasonable and they care about you, they'll renegotiate with you. And don't be a terrorist about it and you'll be fine. But the idea is, and emotional terrorism is a thing. In other words, if a person feels guilty for saying no, they will eventually leave you feeling lonely because they're going to withdraw from the relationship. Ultimately, that comes down to a couple of things, which is feeling unworthy. Oftentimes, if we've had negative relationships, the ending of friendships, or toxic families, or an abusive or narcissistic relationship, with a former partner, oftentimes what will happen is a person feels unworthy to be connected with, or like they don't belong, like an outcast, because of the judgments passed by others in the past, and so they believe that every person in the future is going to do the same as the people in the past. That level of black and white thinking causes loneliness because it means that all 7 billion of the people on the planet think, act, and behave in the same manner, which is not factually accurate. Most of us know that. But the inability to see that for what it is can cause a lot of problems, especially for the future. Hanging out with the wrong crowd or associating with people that aren't in the same mindset as you will cause loneliness. If you're trying to be a valley girl and you're 400 pounds, probably not going to happen. If you're trying to hang out with tech nerds and you don't know how to turn on your computer, probably not going to happen. You have to go to where people who are like-minded and also like-interested are in order to connect with them. And if you don't know where those people are, just start with your hobbies and go, if somebody likes collecting pictures, art on the wall, then if I go and hang out with artists, I might find a like-minded person. If people like a certain band and I go listen and I go hang out with people that have been to concerts in my area of similar bands, I might find a like-minded person. If you don't know how to connect, start with your hobbies and move forward from there. The last thing is a person with depression, anxiety disorder, or panic disorder. All of these will cause loneliness because the negative effect on the mental state of the person in general will be extended beyond what a person can handle, and that level of extension will cause challenges as it relates to connecting with others. And so if you're dealing with loneliness, there are ways to combat it. Please feel free to reach out on Twitter. Please feel free to reach out here on YouTube if I can be of assistance. We are still running our COVID special. Ask about that. That is $50 per session for the length of our working relationship. That's useful for people that are just getting started. In any event, I encourage you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.